Welcome to the Mindfully Gay podcast. I'm John.
And I'm Jerry. Today, we're joined by Mr. X, the current Mr. Leather Salt Lake, for a conversation that takes us into the heart of leather, culture, kink, consent, and queer belonging.
You'll hear the history behind the leather community, the importance of negotiation and communication in kink spaces, and how these communities support public health, education, and activism.
Whether leather is familiar to you or completely new territory, we invite you to listen with curiosity and openness as we explore what these spaces mean for queer identity and self-expression. Hello, welcome to the Mindfully Gay podcast. I am Jerry, and this is...
I'm John.
And we are joined today with Mr. Leather Salt Lake, Utah, Mr. Leather Slut. And he's Mr. X.
Yes.
Hello.
And welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
For joining us. And this is something that John and I have talked about for a while, is what we see with Mindfully Gay is we want to have many kind of voices. So a couple of months ago, we had some young people on here. We've had some older people on here. We're still trying to recruit some drag queens.
Yeah.
Do you know any?
They'll be late.
But we wanted to be able to include kind of like the leather kink perspective of things, because it is such a big part of our community. And I joined two of my friends to Leather Pride, which was my first exposure to the leather world.
Nice.
And that's where you got crowned.
I did.
Yes, and I was actually very impressed with all the contestants. I mean, I think it took a lot of courage to get up in front of your peers and do what you guys were doing.
Right.
And it was fun. And you got crowned.
I did. Yeah, it's been great. Salt Lake City Leather Pride was something I wanted to help bring back last year. So
Yeah.
our resurgence after COVID, I was the event director for Leather Pride last year because I see the need for that space in the community.
Sure.
And then this year was even bigger and better. Monday, we had a event with UAF Legacy Health, where all the proceeds that we raised from Salt Lake City Leather Pride, we donated to UAF, and we were able to provide them over $10,000 in funding that we raised during that event. So,
yeah, that was pretty impressive. And I'm assuming, does that Pride event come out of Black Boots? I never knew we had a Leather Pride.
Mm-hmm.
I was aware of different leather events we had in the community before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hearing you say this is just the second year it's been resurrected.
Yeah, so as Salt Lake City Leather Pride, there are members of the Black Boots community that are on the board, but it is not exclusive to Black Boots. We have a little bit of everyone. We have some females, male identifying, even some heteros working with us. But it's all about community and separating differences and coming together for the common cause.
Yeah, I was impressed. At the event, what day was that? Monday.
Mm-hmm.
The Monday event, they did a check like for $10,600 or something like that.
That's
right?
amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned community, because that's why I'm really excited about having you here specifically on the show. Because I think that's what we've been really talking about on this podcast, is just, talking about gay and queer community and what it is and what it could be. And really speaking to those out there that don't feel like they fit into a community or have a community to go to. And to know that we have such a vast community system, and subcommittees or subcommunities within the broader one, and leather being one of them. And so I thought this is perfect to have you on to kind of talk about our leather community, which is pretty special and unique and really kind of dates back quite a bit. I mean, I remember
Absolutely.
being a young queer boy, and that was one of the first images I would, because I'm from the Bay Area, from Oakland and just San Francisco. That's what I saw or remember seeing, even as a young, teenage queer kid, is kind of leather, and was quite fascinated by it. But it's always kind of been present. So some of my questions that we can probably kind of play with in this conversation is, how do you see that community, and what's it like in Salt Lake, in particular, our leather community and group? And if you know anything about our history, about our leather community, that'd
Absolutely.
be great to share.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I am a gay male. I represent the gay male leather culture. I don't want to put on any pretenses that I'm representing all of leather culture, because there is a large pan community out there, as well as a
Right.
straight leather culture.
Right.
I am the ambassador for gay leather culture. Where gay leather culture started is in the Bay Area and Chicago, with a lot of men returning from World War II, either after the war or being outed in the war and returning on a slip, where their families were basically informed that they were dishonorably discharged for being a homosexual, so they had nowhere to go.
Okay.
So the reason we see these communities in those cities is they're major port cities for the military, and those individuals found community with each other coming from the war and having that military background, where they really enjoyed and found solace in the structure.
Right.
So it first started with motorcycle clubs. So, rebel without a cause kind of vibe. Also, coincidentally, around that time is when you see leather go from brown leather coats to black leather coats.
Yeah.
And so that community of motorcycle clubs really kicked it off. And then that fraternity expanded into, a lot of exploration, and has evolved into leather, what we consider it now. So just to clarify, there's two different ambiguous terms when I'm talking about leather. There's leather as I'm wearing it, and the articles of clothing, and then there's leather in the general sense, which is oftentimes synonymous with BDSM culture. Okay. So contextually, they interchange. Yeah, as part of being of the leather culture, there is a lot of that sexual exploration. One of the epitomes of our culture is the Leatherman's Handbook.
Okay.
This was written by a famous author, Larry Townsend. And there's a lot of very sexy stories in there about, living in leather. So a lot of people have lived by that. But yeah, you see a big emergence of leather culture in the early 70s with bars like the Gold Coast, the Spike, and the Eagles.
Is it Tom of Finland who started kind of creating artistic? When did he come around?
He was around that time as well, in that World War II, post-World War area.
Yeah.
There's Dom Ortega and Rex, who came around like the 60s, 70s as well. Other famous queer artists. There's a lot that's from them, and a lot that's been erased as what happens to our culture of people trying to write over it.
How would you explain the leather community for gay men in particular? Like, my first experience was at that Pride event. I've seen it. I always think, oh, what's the intrigue? Like, it looks painful. It looks uncomfortable. Like, I was telling him the only leather I own is a belt.
Well, we're about to change that.
Yay!
I brought a harness for you to wear just in case.
Oh, good.
Oh, dear.
Go ahead and raise your hands. Let's stick your hands in there.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, it doesn't fit.
It'll fit. Yay!
There
Now
we
you're
go.
official.
Oh, wow.
There's something very powerful about a harness, I think, and I think very sexy too.
What is it though? What,
So-
like the intrigue?
For me, it's the hyper masculine gender performance of it. You know, the harnesses, for example, really accentuate the chest and the pecs, and it's restrictive. It's very tactile. You know, there's a very strong leather scent. These actually still smell like cigars. But it's also very intimate because it's skin on skin contact. Leather doesn't have a lot of elasticity to it, but it does have a lot of memory. So that's one of the things I really find beautiful about leather is if you've ever bought a new pair of leather pants and had to like Crisco your thighs to get in them, after a while, those pants will have shaped to you and they look fantastic. So it's just sexy, you know?
So it's just sex appeal.
I like the you said about just kind of that hyper masculinity and just the very forefront of that. Because when I see it, it just exudes masculinity.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a lot of trans masked friends who are also in the leather culture, and from their perspectives, it's that same thing. It's being able to use leather for that gender performance of that hyper masculinity. And that's where some of them have found like their community.
Yeah. I mentioned I witnessed kind of this leather community being having grown up in the Bay Area and seeing and being around San Francisco. That's what I would see. So I was exposed to it pretty young. What was your first kind of exposure and maybe appeal to the kind of leather scene and that, or what was appealing about it to you?
Yeah, so in my early 20s, I worked at a little bar here called Jam. I'm not sure if you remember it.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago.
Don't tell them how long. I was a bartender there, and
They allowed 14-year-olds to serve?
back in my days they did. Now, and I remember coming across some of the members of the community, Michael Sanders specifically, and others, and seeing that intrigue. And then I went out to San Francisco for an event that I was part of, and it was my first time at Mr. S Leather, which if you're not aware is it's like gay Christmas.
It's heaven.
Yeah.
It's just heaven.
Yeah. And that's when I bought my first harness, and there's just something about putting on your first piece of leather. It's like unlocking a door, you know, it clicks. And ever since then, I've been collecting various leather pieces, articles. It's not cheap, you know.
No.
It's an investment.
It's an investment.
But
You own a bank, right?
I wish. But yeah, ever since then, it's just stuck with me and become part of who I am and how I like to identify.
Well, let me ask this. And first of all, as a therapist, I've worked a lot with people who are in the kink community, leather community. But I do kind of want to try. I know people who look in, and I'm probably one of them at some level where I look and I think, wow, what is that about? Right? And I think just kind of sticking with the leather theme for a moment, like there's something that feels kind of dark about it and mysterious, maybe intimidating.
Intimidating, or are you intimidated?
Both. But I think I will tell you, like at the Leather Pride, I had a good time there. I was actually surprised how many people I knew, but I also felt like kind of small. Like I was definitely out of my territory, which is why I went. I thought, why not? I might as well. I'm kind of about going into experiences that are, you know, I like to test myself in that way.
Why did you feel small?
Huh?
Why?
I just think I definitely felt out of my element. like, not that anyone projected it, but I let's see if I get into it. Maybe I was
outside your comfort zone.
Yeah. Maybe my sense of masculinity, maybe my sense of adventurism. It feels like it's a very adventurous kind of way of being. But I guess I'm putting that out there to say I think what I might be expressing maybe how others on the outside are looking in.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I know it does intrigue a lot of people. So I'm wondering, are there parts of that you would dispel or could potentially enlighten us around?
Absolutely. So leather culture is about community. It's about bringing people in and having an interest in a common goal or cause. There's two big tenets of leather culture, especially gay leather culture. Number one is don't scare women and children, and number two is have great sex. And if you live by those, I think it's very enlightening.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons I really like it is a form of radical sexual self-expression, and that deviancy in our puritanical culture is so counterpoint to what we're trained to consider normal.
Mm-hmm.
But we're gay men, we like sex, and we are just projecting on the outside what we're feeling on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a very welcoming culture. I found my community there. I was, somebody very similar where I was a bit of a chameleon. I would shift between different cultures, and leather culture is where I found I can truly express myself.
Mm. Okay. Would you make? Do you have questions?
Oh, I have lots of questions.
Go ahead, I'll be quiet for a second. Long enough. Okay.
just tapping into that community part, because I think that's what's quite appealing with this particular group, and I see this with kind of the in the drag queen culture and bear culture, but more so I think with the leather culture, where it's like it's an organization where because I've witnessed something like this where there's you're crowned Mr. Leather, right? For your community, and you are the ambassador for your community, and you do community service and fundraising and all these things, and there's meetings and there's a board.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this is an organization. This is and that's what I really like about this. It's just not free love and just out there doing whatever, but there's an organization around it.
Right. Yeah. So the specific community that I'm part of, we identify as a community group. Because, for various reasons, but we don't want to have a CEO and a president. We are run by the community. So we identify as that group, and there are various levels out there. Palm Springs Pride, for example, they are an LLC and they are a legitimate nonprofit, and so that means they have a board of directors and all of those things. But we here in Salt Lake are a community group because it is people who are passionate about leather and BDSM culture coming together to ensure that it exists, because it won't without the people keeping the flame alive.
Mm-hmm. So are you saying Salt Lake City is not necessarily like the people who presented the check? That's not coming from a nonprofit or a LLC?
It's coming from a community group. It is money that was raised as part of that event to be provided to UAF.
Okay. Yeah.
And say more about how someone might, become, a part of the community if they were curious.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a leather social that happens the third Sunday of every month at Triangles. There's various groups on FetLife. Are you familiar with FetLife?
I'm not. Are you?
I am.
I won't tell.
I'm more hip.
So FetLife is an online community for fetish enthusiasts. It is
Not that I have a membership. No.
I see that card in your wallet. Yeah.
It's open to everyone. So, you will see a lot of straight in poly or pan folks on there, but there's community groups there's several groups in northern Utah, I believe a couple of southern Utah ones as well.
Mm-hmm.
But wherever you are, I'm sure you can find a fetish group on FetLife. So that's a good place to start, of just the exploration. But I would also, do your research and history, and it's really about getting out there and being part of the community, meeting people and networking. Because that's how I did it. I was working in the community and learned about it. So if you're not getting out and supporting your gay bars, whether you drink or not, or your queer spaces, then it's going to be a lot harder for you to find these things, because it is a very underground culture.
Mm-hmm. So can we get into fetish for a minute?
Absolutely. Are you asking for consent?
Yes. Well, because I'm hearing you make a distinction between leather community, but then you said sometimes it gets tied into the BDSM and fetish community and kink community. And and I guess that's a part, I hear this frequently from my friends who are just like, wow, why would somebody do that? Or what's that about? So I'm wondering if you can kind of give some context about that piece.
Yeah, so with the BDSM community, bondage, dominance, submission, sadomasochism, there's various aspects to it. In the Leatherman's Handbook, there's a lot about the DS dynamic, the dominant submissive dynamic, and that whole role-playing aspect of it, of who's the top or the dom, and that either that total power exchange or there's that play on dynamics. For me, I'm really into the bondage aspect of it. I'm a rope dom. I was Boy Scout, learned all my knots, and didn't have anything to do with them. And then that was something else that unlocked when I brought ropes to the bedroom, And so it's facilitating a safe space to play with those things. I'm very big on consent and carefully selecting my play partners and checking in, because the BDSM culture is a more intimate version of sexual expression. You can have a hookup and not know somebody's name and get sexual gratification, and then you're done. But when you're tying somebody up for 2 hours and really honing into those stimuli that really makes them tick and pulse and all of those things, that is a whole other level of experience with somebody. Same with dominant submission. If you are submitting to somebody and allowing yourself to be dominated by them, that is a lot. We do a lot in our day-to-day lives that are like that we get no sexual satisfaction from, like bosses and whatnot. So we've seen like a lot of people in a lot of power having that power exchange because they are wanting to relinquish that control and experience the other side of it.
Yeah.
I think that's what's really fascinating about this particular part of the community too. I'm just thinking about even just people that I've known, I know, or have, chatted with, like on Scruff or something like that, and kind of talking about just fetishes or preferences or fantasies and things like that. And it seems like some are kind of looking for, someone who can speak the same language as them and can vibe in the same way or have the same kind of kink, or like, would you role play with me or something like that. And so just to know that here's a place that normalizes it and celebrates it. And I think when that's allowed and when that's done and when it's seen, especially in this community, I think it just brings forth so much more, not only intimacy, but just, what's the word I'm thinking of? Authenticity of that individual, rather than living in shame and guilt, like, oh, I have this fetish, I have this fantasy, and hush hush behind closed doors. Whereas here's a place where you can freely express yourself, in a particular way, and it's celebrated. And so I'm glad you're talking about this and maybe getting more of this out to an audience who are maybe very curious about expressing themselves in a way that maybe they thought they couldn't.
Exactly. Yeah. We've been in the shadows for so long, and in the 70s and the earlier times, we had the hanky code. The hanky code still exists.
Yeah.
It's not as underground anymore, but for example, if I can get to my back pocket, I wear a left-sided gray hanky. This means I'm into bondage, and I'm on the dominant side. So the left side is usually your dominant roles, and then the color and patterns will represent what you're into. Red being fisting, blue, depending on the various color, is expressing an interest. Orange can be up for anything, or you're just browsing. And so a lot of our expressions historically have come from this very subvert process of flagging.
Coded, these little codes and little ways that we were able to wink wink nod to each other.
Right.
Yeah.
I would probably get confused, have the wrong hanky, and it's like, excuse me, what are you doing?
You just have to look at their butt and go like, left, right.
So we invited you here because I saw you get crowned, and I thought, okay, well, here's a guy. This is a great opportunity for him to kind of connect and expand here. But I want to put something out there, and I know that you're just speaking from your perspective and not from everyone's. As a therapist, sometimes I've worked with people who are dealing with different kinks and interests, and many times, not all the time, so this isn't a huge generalization, I sometimes am concerned that people, through their kinks or fetishes, are kind of reliving prior traumas, or subjecting themselves in a particular way that, for me as a therapist, might be a little alarming or concerning. And so I once had a conversation like 20 years ago with this guy who was kind of like a leather community leader. And I learned a few things from him that was really interesting. But I'm just wondering, is there something that happens within the community where there's some consciousness about those dynamics?
Absolutely. BDSM can be very cathartic in a lot of ways because it takes something that happens to you and it puts it in your control. For example, if you were beat as a child, let's say, and maybe now you have a spanking fetish, it's taking that power away from what happened to you and reshaping it into something that you can control. We see a lot of that with impact play, role playing, for example, boy, son, coach, things like that. And then the ABDL community, there's some of that catharsis in there as well.
What's ABDL?
Adult baby diaper lovers.
Oh, okay.
So those are adults in diapers or other devices, and it can be a way of certain exposure therapy, so to speak, to resituate that in somebody's brain that it's not so traumatic, that they're taking power from it.
Yeah.
Is that how you see it in some of your sessions, or something else?
It is. I will say it is about proper negotiation and going into it in the right headspace with the proper intent.
Yeah. So, is that how I see it? I see a wide variety of things. So I think there are some people who, and this is what concerns me, and there are some groups, like I worked with this individual. I used to do sweat lodges for his group. I'll just say his first name is Andrew, and then there was a woman before him. And what I really liked about those groups is they spent time, like there would be classes on fisting, classes on spanking, and topics of consent and checking in seemed to be a part of those templates.
Right.
And then I think there are some people, especially on social media, who are saying, oh, I'm into this. And yet what I often hear from my clients is there's no sense of negotiation or boundaries or respect. And so, and many times I see them get re-traumatized. And actually, I don't know how terribly ethical this is, but people that I've worked with who are really kind of committed to a particular kink or fetish, I will try to link them with legitimate people that I know.
Yeah.
Like I might refer them to you
Right.
to say, why don't you talk to Mr. X, and maybe he
Yeah.
can help you connect with somebody who will do this from a more ethical process.
I like that.
Yeah. And so I see a variety of that. And,
Yep.
and I think that's actually what sometimes concerns me about people who are just kind of randomly getting involved. It feels like this layer of play is, I think it's legitimized by the sense of the community because it feels like there's some peer responsibility. I imagine if you've, no pun intended, fucked up, you'd probably have a couple other folks say, what's up, dude?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And for me, it is about that negotiation and finding partners and vetting them appropriately. I think it's to me a very big red flag of somebody I don't know online saying, hey, I want you to do XYZ to me. I'm like, you don't even know who I am. And I could be a serial killer and you just want me to come over and tie you up and do all these things. Because it is such an intimate thing to me, I really enjoy that negotiation because it is building that trust and that foundation. In my own process, for my play partners, I have them fill out a spreadsheet. I jokingly call it, my freak in the sheets spreadsheet. It's all these different interests and their level of experience that I will have them go through so that I know exactly where they are in their journey, where they have interest and where I can take them, and then the things to hold off on or to avoid. Because of those negotiations, I think negotiating and having that conversation makes it more fun.
As you're talking, I was thinking, and we've tried to do this on the podcast before, hookup culture is so big, right? It was scruff and grinder and sniffles and all the rest of them, right? Or it's not sniffles.
That's what you call it.
That's what I call it.
That's what you get afterwards.
And one thing I think that's missing in that culture is the concept of securing consent and communication.
Yes.
And so, like, I'm just curious what that would look like. I think perhaps it's our leather community really that could probably educate the rest of us
I think so.
on how to legitimately negotiate a positive sex play.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious.
What I would say is if you are meeting somebody for the first time, it's absolutely okay to have sex with them, but get to know them before you do any more. Develop that connection and that trust before getting into other play. Now, there are safe play spaces like the community groups around here that will have private parties. And because those are private parties, you have to be a member and you have to RSVP and you have to agree to those community guidelines. As part of that orientation process is, agreeing to the consent practices of that community.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is a big part that people often overlook. And, when I'm at those parties, I am part of the guard there. So I'm there to also help ensure that that consent is not being avoided or assumed. Exactly.
Yeah, right.
So everybody that I'm playing with, I will ask them, is it okay if I tie you up? Do you have any physical or other limitations I need to be aware of? What is your safe word? I think that's a really good one to start with, is what is your safe word? And that is code for, hey, I'm not in a good headspace, and I'm freaking out, I need to be done, or this hurts too much, or whatever. If coming up with the safe word is sometimes too much or feels silly, you can use the stoplight method. So the stoplight method is green for something that's really feeling good and you're really liking it. You can say yellow for something you need to slow down on and just, okay, let's take a breather. And then red is basically your safe word of, okay, let's stop, take a moment, gather ourselves, and then come back together.
Yeah.
So
if I were the participant and I said red light, that would mean stop.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And green light would mean accelerate. No.
Exactly. I think you're getting close. Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple ways to get that consent, but it's about that communication and making that connection. And that's why I personally avoid just finding play partners online and doing stuff with them for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there seems to be that part is missing in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Just communication, and I think that important word that you've been saying, negotiation.
Yeah.
What are we here to do? What's up? Yeah. What's our ins? What's our outs? And I think that's what's going to make the experience just more enjoyable mm-hmm. if you've kind of gone through all these steps beforehand.
Yeah. I've seen a big paradigm as to what you see in media and what's real life. Like the 50 Shades of Grey, who was written by a virgin who had no concept of what actual BDSM culture is so far from what the reality is. But that's people's first association. Or I have a lot of sex worker friends that will put on a scene, but they've done that prior negotiation. But what you don't see on the screen is that negotiating. So I think people are trying to often tie what they're seeing in media to real life, not realizing that was all fantasy work.
Yeah.
And it's okay to live in that fantasy as long as you've done the work prior to, agree to those things. Because I also know people who, part of our negotiating is, I want you to tie me up, but no penetrative sex, or, you can do this, but not that. And that is absolutely okay. But if you don't communicate it beforehand, you can't say that your consent was violated when you haven't, officially had that express consent. Right. So enthusiastic consent is a very big tenet of BDSM cultures. Yes, I want you to do this. No, I don't want you to do this. I'd really like this to take place. I'm not interested in this. So being as explicit as you can in your desires will make both parties more comfortable and have more fun.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think it's interesting because culturally, especially here in Utah, but I think it's a national cultural thing, right? We've generally speaking, there's taboo around sex. We like to watch it, we'll catch it on TV, but right, we get really anxious about certain kinds of nudity in a movie, right? And so consequently, especially in a culture like Utah where it's very conservative, there's not a lot of conversation. And I think the one thing, and I know people in the porn industry and what have you, and now that with OnlyFans, where there is a lot of time spent negotiating about what we will and will not do. And I've suggested to some of my creator friends, wouldn't it be great if you included that as part of your video?
Yes.
The actual conversation and consent process. Because I think because of that cultural norm, and then especially growing up gay, right, we do that very closeted, we do that very independent of feedback from others until, right, we get on Grindr or Scruff, and that's probably not the best place to get the education. And so I would say one of the challenges I see with a lot of men that I work with is the ability to really articulate and be able to communicate about what works and what doesn't work. And I think our sexual experiences could be so much different if we did more oral sex. Talk about it.
Talk about it, yeah. Which
I
leads
love
me
that.
to ask, well, let me just say it this way. Does the group, does the organization, does the community offer like classes?
We do.
Oh, you do? See?
Absolutely. So
See, you guys, we've got it right here.
Blackboard is part of our community. And so I've taught several classes about bondage and other topics. We have some on impact play, like spanking or flogging or paddling. We've had classes on fisting and, toy play and things like that, so that you can learn from players in the community the proper way to do things. And as part of those classes, we talk about RAC. RAC stands for Risk Aware Consensual Kink. So
Love it.
Say that one more time.
Yes.
RAC, Risk Aware Consensual Kink.
Love it.
And so it's, if you're getting into something, let's say like E-stim, it's knowing the dangers of it, because you're sending electricity through your body, where it's okay to do that, where you want to avoid, the different types of stimuli, the different types of E-stims that you can find. So knowing the dangers of it, what to do and what not to do is part of it. And then the other part that I really love our community for is it's a safe, sane, and consensual space. So you can bring your own alcohol, but drugs are not allowed, because it is hard to give consent if you are not in the right state of mind. And I avoid that with my play partners. Is, yeah, we can have a drink, but that's it. Because if you have anything else, it's going to take away from the actual sensations and experience of the play. So SSC, so safe, sane, and consensual, and RAC are two very big things that people can look at when they're looking for play partners and those safe spaces, and looking into a new kink.
This is why this community is so important in the broader community. Again, I'm so glad that you're here to talk about this, because I don't think people really know about this.
No.
Especially, I just think about our young queer boys out there who are experimenting and are online and doing all these things and just putting themselves out there and potentially harming themselves. And to know that we've got an established community of leaders and individuals who are willing and able to teach, educate, so that we can continue to be a healthy community of individuals to express themselves in a very positive way and in a non-harmful way. This is a great education, I think.
Well, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it feels like, and I don't know the correlation, I'm assuming a correlation with Black Boots, but I'm thinking Black Boots kind of led the community in the awareness of PrEP. and
Monkeypox as well.
Well, yes,
we were,
that's right.
we
That's
were
right.
one
Yes.
of the largest drives in the U.S.
US.
to get our community monkeypox vaccinated.
yeah. And so I think that was through Black Boots, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and historically, a lot of that community education came actually from bathhouses.
Mm-hmm.
That was an epicenter for gay men. So having that information there was easily distributed. But in Utah, bathhouses are illegal. So we have these private events to help educate others. And in my perspective, and this might be slightly political for some, but I believe that kink belongs in Pride, because this is a very big part of gay history and queer culture, and it deserves its representation in Pride events. Pride is not meant to be a straight person petting Zeus. They can wear rainbows and feel good about themselves for a weekend because they have a corporation logo that's been rainbow washed.
Has Black Boots or the leather community been excluded? Because it's been a while since I've been to a parade, but I do remember Black Boots marching at some point.
In various Pride festivities, different key communities are usually suggested to not attend or are excluded from the parade.
Interesting.
That being said, I do want to give a big shout out to SLC Pride, who is a community-driven organization focusing on bringing queer communities together. And so Salt Lake City Leather Pride has had a space in their event for the past 2 years. We are great partners with them, and I love everybody at SLC Pride. And that is what Pride truly means to me. It's not an insurance agency trying to sell you on something just because you're there. These are actual queer community groups representing their community for that interest.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. It's making me think about just going back to my early days living in the Bay Area and remembering, I was certainly too young for all this, but just remember, San Francisco bathhouses and everything, and just knowing just through other people and organizations that those were our schools for, one for gathering, community, gay men can come together at these establishments, and they got their education about certain things.
Right.
When AIDS was, on the forefront, that's where people got their information about what was going on. They got their news at the bathhouse. Or if it's about some kind of political thing or a social thing or something, that's where they got their news. And so when all of that disappeared and were closed for, because of AIDS and HIV, etc., I think we lost a lot of those establishments where we got very, important information. And so now, fast forward, when you look at the 21st century, even where we have house parties and groups and things like that, it's like, this is the new bathhouse setting for educating our community. Just like with Morningwood, for example, Morningwood and Black Boots, where here's a place to be yourself and express yourself, and we're gonna give you information about things. Here you can go get tested. We can get tested here. All those kinds of things. And another important aspect of like you said, the being able to see and witness this group and not being shunned and put aside, but very welcomed in, like you said, Salt Lake Pride.
Yes, something to that too. I do want to point out is the stigma around healthcare. Oftentimes healthcare providers aren't aware of what PrEP is. I educated my own physician on PrEP and DoxyPEP and getting on those things. So if you are looking for healthcare providers that actually understand in Utah, UAF Legacy Health is the place to go. You can find your gender affirming care there. They have.
Did you say ginger?
There's
There's a ginger approving.
That too.
Most people approve of gingers, but gender affirming healthcare, HIV case management, like they have doctors and physicians there that are trained and specialized in those practices, as well as additional mental health facilities for either regular checkups or for crisis. So that is, I think, one of the strongest places in our community to go to learn about your own health.
Yeah.
Excellent. Love that.
So we're kind of coming up on time, but I wanted you to be able to talk specifically. So you have this title, Mr. Leather Slut or something like that.
Mr. Leather Slut it is. Yeah.
Can you educate people about what responsibilities come with the title?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a current title holder, my responsibilities are to my community. I am an ambassador to help promote community fundraising and activism for the gay men's leather culture. So I was honored to receive an invite on this podcast so that I can help represent our culture. I will also be working on various community events throughout the year to bring people together around that common cause. I'm working with UAF to do some more outreach for them as well. And I do a lot of volunteer work because the greatest thing anybody can give is their time.
Yeah.
And I really believe in this culture. I have found myself in this culture, and I want to ensure that it exists for generations to come, as well as educating those younger generations on what proper consent and BDSM culture looks like.
Yeah.
Are there any events or activism topics that are kind of on the forefront right now that you're kind of heading or looking at?
Yeah, there's a lot with our political system that's taking place, showing up to rallies and protecting not only your own interests, but the people around you, like your brothers and your sisters and your trans friends and all of their rights. Put yourself in their shoes and try to understand what they might be experiencing and help defend that. I come from a place of privilege. I am, a white male, and I want to be able to use that privilege for good and help people up the ladder, not pull the ladder from them. So that is why I ran for this title, is to be an ambassador to help strengthen our community bonds.
I think that was one thing I noticed at the Pride event, the Leather Pride event, is I felt like there was absolute inclusion, right? Like I saw skinny Twinkie guys, big burly guys, bearish, like the trans guys. Like it seemed like inclusion in the community was a highly valued concept. That it was so, it seems so automatic. And I think sometimes in other queer spaces, right, privileges are kind of given to particular looks or bodies and what have you. And I definitely, I always sit as an observer, and I'm a social worker at heart, and I'm like, wow, I can really feel the sense of inclusion here.
It seems to be, it's just a part of the heart of the group. I mean, that's what I said. I mean, I'm certainly an outsider, but like you, that's what I sense when I'm in the community or just around. It's just this natural, inherent piece of who they are, who you are, in this setting. Just open arms and community enhancing and welcoming, all of that. I see that in the bear community too, and some other communities where it's just so open, and you feel like, oh, this is where I belong. Whereas in some cases, like you were saying, you feel so much like an outsider, and it's like I don't fit in at all, and have to adjust and even change the way that I look or appear or whatever in order to fit in. Whereas in your community, I just feel like I can just show up as I am,
Right.
and will be welcomed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about finding common ground and working within the community of that common ground. That being said, I'm also a member of Bluff. Bluff is a breeches leather uniform fan club where there is a dress code. So there are people who do look very similar because it is specifically about formal leatherware. But that being said, there's various types in there. For example, I'm wearing a green leather jacket right now. That's not something that you would often see in the Bluff community. It's mostly like black everything, or maybe some accents of red or blue to help promote that like hypermasculinity. But green is my signature color, and this is how I like to identify. So it meets those standards, and I'm accepted, and they can appreciate my differences.
So what's the gateway? Like how, if someone's listening thinking, wow, this sounds like a place I'd like to get involved and, or I would like to get linked into here in Salt Lake, what would the gateway be?
Yeah, so I would say start making friends in the community. The best place is going to be at your bars. The third Sunday of every month, we have an event at Triangles from 3 to 6 p.m. That's a good way to meet people in the community. It's a very casual time. If you have leather, you're absolutely welcome to wear it. If you don't have any leather yet, that's totally fine. Come meet people, have a drink, and just socialize. And then there's a lot of really good education online. There's also a lot of really bad education online. So if you're looking for some of the history of leather culture, the Queer Archives and the Leather History Museum are great online resources. If you're more into tactile and reading, the Leatherman's Handbook, that's a great fantasy guidebook as to that exploration. If you're looking for like DS, Dom Sub dynamics, this is a great book, The Ties That Bind. And this is by Guy Baldwin. He's a famous writer in the community. This is talking a lot about those dynamics and how to negotiate and how to operate in the community. And then Urban Aboriginals. This is more of a historical book about exploring leather sexuality, very similar to the Leatherman's Handbook, but from a different context. And then I brought some other books about old guard versus new guard. And that is also a very broad topic, probably one for another podcast. Okay. But in essence, old guard is like earned rights and goes back into that DS dynamic of earning your leather from a hierarchical standpoint versus new guard, which is you wear leather because you enjoy leather and you don't have to earn it. Some also believe that there's no true old guard. It's not coming from our culture. So depending on who you ask, but that's a great exploration as to where do you feel like you would fit in.
Yeah. Okay. So Triangle's the third Sunday of each month. So that would be Christmas weekend.
It might change this weekend. I'll have to check that. But FetLife, there's a lot of communities on FetLife as well. Recon is another app specifically for gay men to find that culture. If you are into more formal leather and the uniform look, the Bluff site, BLUF.com, is a great place to explore that and find various members out there. But just get out and support your community.
Yeah. Well, any other questions?
No, I'm just
Sweaty.
no, I'm just kind of fanboy over here. I love this so much, and I think this was such an important conversation to be had, and for our listeners to, tap into and just know a little bit more about, our community and what there is to offer, and that there's some very bright sides to our community, and if someone's out there just not feeling a part of anything and not connected, and sounds appealing to you, or even some of the aspects of it, check it out. This might be, a nice, like you said, gateway to, making better connections with others. But I like to think, even a deeper connection with yourself, and just to know yourself even better, and know who you are, and being able to express yourself fully and freely.
Yeah, twice. And try anything once, twice if it bites back.
Well, congratulations on your reign.
Yeah,
You
thank
should
you.
have seen when they put the tiara on him. It was
It's
beautiful.
fabulous, wasn't it?
The red roses.
I practiced my wave for hours.
It was touching. I actually cried when I saw it.
I
so.
love it. I love it.
But thank you, Mr. X, for joining us and
Absolutely.
sharing this with you. Again, this is your perspective. The idea of the podcast is to stimulate conversation. So even disagreements are welcomed, because it's part of dialogue. And so we thank you for being here. Thank you for our listeners. You can find us at mindfullygay.com. We're on Instagram, mindfully_gay. We're on Facebook. We have monthly events. Come and join us. And until next time, thank you.
Thank you for spending this time with us, and for being part of the Mindfully Gay community.
We hope today's conversation gave you new perspective on leather culture, consent, and the many ways queer people create meaningful spaces for connection.
We would love to hear your thoughts and your stories. Share with us on Instagram at mindfully_gay, and visit mindfullygay.com to learn more about our upcoming free social events and our winter retreat.
And if this episode resonated with you, please rate the show on your podcast platform. It helps others find our content and join the conversation.
Until next time, thanks for listening.